This hay's been out here all winter long, just waiting for us to bring it around to our Ruth Stout bed. Guten Yardening, everybody. It is absolutely beautiful out here. It's warm. If you listen carefully, you can hear the birds. It's just starting to look like spring everywhere. And now's the time where we want to come out and make sure that our Ruth Stout bed is ready to go for our spring planting. Now, if you've never grown using the Ruth Stout method, it is very simple. All we're doing is adding hay or another material like pine needles, or in our case we've used corn stalks that we've ground up and that we use to decompose and create a natural mulch that we grow our vegetables in. Last year was our first attempt to grow anything using the Ruth Stout method, and we decided to grow some potatoes. And the results of our harvest were mixed, a little bit mixed, but part of the reason why we struggled last year was we dealt with a lot of vole damage to our potatoes. And another thing that we had to take into consideration is because it was our first year with the Ruth Stout method, there really hadn't been a lot of decomposition or anything like that happening with the hay at that point. But our expectation is that year over year we should start to see better harvests as we continue to add layer upon layer of mulch as it decomposes and makes this area healthier. What I want to do now is to give you an up-close look at what we have so far and what we're going to do to prepare our garden bed here for our upcoming planting. Now, the overall growing space here is about 25 square feet, so it's not a huge growing space for this Ruth Stout bed, and part of the reason why it's not all that large so far is because we want to test it a little bit more and make sure we're getting good results before we dedicate any more of the garden area to this kind of planting. If I hold my hand up to the edge of this bed, you can see that we only in some spots have about an inch or two left of our hay. It's decomposed down that far. And then in other areas, we've got a lot more height, a lot more depth to the hay. And that's because at the end of last season, we added some of our leftover hay from one of our hay bales that we were growing some sweet potatoes in. We added it over here into this area. So we need to spread this out just a little bit, but I want to show you what it looks like underneath this hay. So as I dig down in here just a little bit, you can see some of the depth, and I'm going to pull up what's underneath here, and you can see that it's already starting to get darker. It's decomposing. Remember, this has been out here all winter long, and so it's had time to start to decompose. And really, look at this. This looks absolutely fantastic. Now, one of the things that people wonder about when getting started with the Ruth Stout method is whether or not they have to do anything to the grass underneath. And I'm just going to move away all of the hay here, and I'm going to show you that what's underneath here is just some nice, healthy soil. We didn't have to remove any of the grass that was underneath here. This hay, this mulch, causes it to die back. So there's no problem. There's no need to do anything to the grass that's right there. So whatever we covered up, whatever we mulched in is gone. Now, we did add a layer of cardboard just for the sake of that initial shaping of this garden, but really that wasn't even necessary. So you can see this is what you can expect down in here. You can expect some really nice, rich composting to be happening of all of this hay, and we're going to continue to add layer upon layer. Now, how much hay do you need for your Ruth Stout bed? Well, according to Ruth Stout, she said take whatever you think you need and double it. So whatever amount you think you need over here, you double it. But the reality is that we should have somewhere around 8 inches worth of depth. And really, the sooner you can get this out here, the better. And that's, again, one of the issues we had last year. We were applying fresh hay to a space, starting the space for the first time ever, about halfway through the growing season. So there really wasn't a lot of time for it to break down like we wanted to. And the longer you can give it in preparation for the next growing season, the better off you'll be. So what I want to do here is to get started leveling out and really spreading out the hay that we already have down. And so I'm getting some of this really nice hay that's already, again, starting to decompose. And it just looks fantastic. But I'm getting this spread out so that I have a nice even layer. And then we're going to add our fresh hay. And we're going to continually add fresh hay as needed over this entire growing season and over the year as we go. And again, the reason we're doing that is because as time goes by, this is going to compress down, and again, it's going to break down to the point where we don't have enough depth. And since we're growing potatoes as one of the crops here in this Ruth Stout bed, and hopefully getting a much better crop this year than we did last year, we want to make sure there's plenty of depth as they start to develop. Now, one of the things we wanted to be sure of when we bought our hay is that we got a variety that hadn't had any kind of pesticide or anything sprayed on it. We wanted as close to all natural hay as we could get. And so we made sure that we found a farmer locally who could assure us that that's exactly what we were getting. And really, we paid, I want to say, $3 maybe $4 for this bale, for each of the bales that we got. For a couple of dollars, I think that assurance is worth it. First of all, you're getting it a lot cheaper if you can find a local farmer than you are probably if you're buying it at one of the hardware stores for $9 or $10. And really, that assurance is worth it to us to make sure that we're not adding anything unnecessary to the garden that we're planting. We don't do it, we don't spray our pesticides or anything like that on anything else in any other part of the garden, so why would we make that mistake with this method? And so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add this fresh hay, and you're going to see the depth that we're going to have here as we've prepared our Ruth Stout method. As I'm finishing up here, I want to address one of those common questions that we see about this method of growing. Are you talking about straw or are you talking about hay? Well, hay provides, according to Ruth Stout and what she observed, and I love the fact that Ruth Stout really only talked about what she personally observed. She didn't talk about what other people were saying. It was her observation, and her observation was that hay provided the best result. And one thing you might be curious about is, you know that hay has a lot of seeds in it. In fact, you've probably seen it if you've laid this out just in a thin layer over top of some soil and you've seen things weeds starting to sprout up. But the beauty of this method is you're adding enough depth, you're adding enough mulch to it that you're able to hold those weeds down. And on top of that, as long as you don't mix the soil in from the bottom up through the mulch, you're not going to see a lot of weed development anyway. And any weeds you do see, you lay them over and you add some more mulch. Now you may think this looks a little bit deeper than that 8 inches I mentioned here at the beginning, but I am going to add some water to hold it down. We're at a time of year where there's tons of wind and I don't want this blowing all over our neighborhood. With that being said, what preparation did we really have to do for our Ruth Stout bed? We had to add some more hay, and that's it. And this being the second season of growth in here, we should see a great return on investment, I think, as we start to plant in here. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.